Steve, maybe just talk about what went in the decision that this was going to be the last year for you.
Well, my wife and I started thinking about it late last summer, and part of it has to do with health. I'm not going to keep any secrets. I'm type 2 diabetic, and this is not a lifestyle that's conducive to that, and my numbers showed that. They've had to upgrade me as far as my medications are concerned, and I just think that I got to care about my health first. I got to take care of her, take care of everything else around the house and what have you. So that was probably the main reason for the decision. That and 4,000 plus games. I think that's enough. People need to hear a new voice.
Is it? When you kind of start to reflect back on your career, are you kind of amazed by the numbers of how long you've been doing this?
I really am. I had no idea what to expect when we started all this in 1994. Obviously, like any other broadcaster, I would hope to have been in the big leagues at one time or another. But on the other hand, if you're going to be at AAA, this is the place to be. And so I think that 4,000 plus games was unfathomable when I started it in 1994. But I've enjoyed every minute of it.
So when you retire, Steve, are you retired, or you
I'm
be
going
around
to
to fill in Weber State stuff?
Football and basketball. And probably, if a fill-in is needed here or there, I'd be more than happy to do it if I'm still, have my wits about me.
Are you feeling nostalgic yet, or will that set in later on in the season?
Actually, a little, John. I think a little bit has set in just from some of the messages I've gotten. I've gotten messages from players that were with us in that first year of 1994. One guy in particular who was only with us for 3 weeks, but he wrote a nice note. I just got a text this morning from Billy Smith, the former assistant general manager and manager of the Minnesota Twins when we were a Twins affiliate our first 7 years, and so to get messages from people that far back have really kind of touched me. It really has, and the outpouring on social media from the fans has been completely overwhelming.
Is there one memory here that sticks out the most to you?
There's so many. There are so many. A lot of times I'll think about, people ask me, what game do you remember more than any else? Probably the first game, just because it was the start of what became. We were in Vancouver, got rained out the first 2 games, and so we had to play back-to-back doubleheaders to open our history. And so that was a real indoctrination of the Pacific Coast League and what we have to go through. So those days I remember. Eddie Guardado was our starting pitcher. We lost the game 2-1. Guy who went on to play quite a bit in the major leagues, JT Stowe. Scored the first run against us in that first game. We didn't hit our first home run until the 4th. Strangest probably would be 2011, April 11th, I think it was. We won a game in the bottom of the 13th on a walk-off detached equipment call. Runner at third base, 1 out. Pitch was in the dirt. The catcher for Tucson, Guillermo Quiroz, gathered the ball back in with his mask, which is illegal. The runners get to advance a base. That brought in the winning run, and it was good that the umpire caught it. I don't remember his name, but he was a major league umpire here on injury rehab assignment, so he knew his rules.
Speaking of rules, what do you think of the rule changes, especially with what they're doing with the umpires this year?
I like it. I thought the ABS system last year was not intrusive whatsoever. It actually, to me, it was just as quick as it was with an all regular home plate umpire calling the balls and strikes. The challenge system will be interesting. I know that the series we played in Sugar Land last year was the only series we had the challenge system. And most of the time, both teams were out of challenges because you get 3 wrong ones before you're out by 5 or 6 pitches. I think the umpires were more right than the players thought they were going to be.
Baseball has stood the test of time, and the popularity kind of waxes and wanes over the years. But why do you think that this game is so special? You've devoted your whole life to it.
I don't know. It's a game that you can observe, you can pay attention to, but you're with a group of people. You can still talk to them, maintain a conversation, maintain a contact. And despite the rule changes, the lack of constraint of time, I think you get your full 27 outs. You never know what's going to happen in the 9th inning. So I just think that's just a part of it. And I think after a long winter, especially this long winter, everybody likes the idea of spending some summertime outside and out at the ballpark.
You're not going to broadcast there, but what do you think about the Bees moving on to a new generation, new era at the new stadium?
I think it's going to be great for whoever. It's just, things change in all sports, and I think that it's going to be a good change for all. Obviously, this has been my summer home since 1994, so when I do come out to the ballpark as a fan, I just have to remember to cross I-15 instead of turn right.
Dave, what memories can you share when you saw here Big Papi or Mike Trout when they were here?
Well, Trout you knew was going to be great. You'd heard everything about him, and was funny. The first time he was here, the only reason he was here that year was because he had a flu bug or something during the spring training, and so he had to get sharp and spend 3 weeks with us. And first swing he ever took in this ballpark in batting practice, he hit one off the batter's eye. He turned and smiled and goes, "Boy, I'm really going to like hitting here." Of course, the only home run he hit in the 3 weeks with us was in Reno, not here. But you could see his talent. He hit, 403 in his 3 weeks with us. And I always joke about the fact, why did the Angels call him up back then? He was 0 for 3 in his last game with us. For David Ortiz, it was interesting because he was a lot slender than he is today. 30 homers, 110 runs batted in, but set a record for this franchise that will never be broken. And that's 20 errors in one season at first base. So that's why he became a designated hitter.
What voices did you listen to growing up that shaped your style?
Number one would be a guy named Jack Brickhouse, Hall of Famer. Did the Cubs and White Sox on television as well as the first Bulls announcer on TV and the Bears announcer on radio. He was a guy that was pretty positive, had a lot of fun, and I remember meeting him on a couple of occasions. The best advice he ever gave me was, whatever your problems you're having during the course of the day, don't take them on the air, because the people who are listening are trying to escape their own problems for 2 or 3 hours. Back when he was with the Cardinals and the White Sox, I think part of my enthusiasm, for the game came from Harry Carey. Not his Cubs years, but for the White Sox and Cardinals, because he was much sharper back then, and he was a joy to listen to. I could pick up KMOX in St. Louis in my Chicago suburb home and would listen to the games on a regular basis just because I love to listen to him.
Steve, 28 years in minor league baseball with the Bees. Can you talk about just some of the relationships that you've been able to develop and what you might miss about those relationships and not being around the game every summer?
That's what I'll miss the most, the relationships. Like I said, I'm still in contact with guys who played for us in the 90s, either by phone, by text, social media. Social media has been great to reconnect with a lot of guys. And the one thing about it, I'll always try to follow the guys who've made it to the big leagues and the success that they've had, and I've enjoyed every minute of success that they've had. But there's always going to be a chunk of my heart that goes to the guys who got to AAA and for whatever reason just never made it to that next step. Those are the guys that I kind of remember them more than I do the others. And a lot of those guys who never made it here because of their perseverance in trying to get up have done very well for themselves in the business world after their retirement.
Do you look forward to having an old friend return and Keith as manager?
Great. I think he's going to be a big boost for this ball club. It was kind of a country club the last couple of years. Keith will certainly run a tight ship. He's enthusiastic for the game of baseball. He's a great teacher of the game, and I think this is a group of guys that needs that kind of push to get them over the top. I think it was. I was told by a High Angels person that lack of structure was a problem here the last couple of years. And so that will not be a problem with Keith at the helm. So I'm really excited that he's come back and be a part of my last year.
Anything else for Steve?
Is baseball your favorite sport?
I like broadcasting sports play-by-play regardless of the sport. And obviously I'm known here more for baseball, but I actually broadcast more basketball games before I moved to Salt Lake. And I love doing the football at Weber State. Love the basketball. I just love being there because to me, sports is about what happens between the lines. And if you can be involved in what's happening between the lines, I'm better for it.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
I know it's hard for you to get up and talk.